Very good afternoon to all present. Uh, in this era, we are almost into more than 60 days of the lockdown, and we are approaching the third month of our lockdown. And ever since this lockdown has started, uh, in the electronic media, in the print media, in the social media, there is a lot of buzz, a lot of talk, a lot of economists, a lot of industrialists, a lot of researchers and experts are talking about how the industries are going to get impacted because of this complete lockdown, how businesses are going to get affected because of this lockdown. Will industries remain the same? Will businesses operate in the same way after the lockdown? I mean, there are different arguments, there are different viewpoints, and there is a great degree of curiosity amongst all strata of people that what is going to happen to the industry, what is going to happen to businesses, how are things going to work post lockdown or the in the post COVID era. So all these things basically has prompted me to get into a very different sphere than what I have specialized myself into, and more or less, to integrate with the conventional systems. So how things are going to go around, what is the next big thing which is likely to happen, and what are the opportunities which are going to lie for mechanical engineers, in fact for all engineers, professionals and industrialists in the coming time. So my talk for today, as mentioned by sir, is the role of cyber physical systems or cyber physical systems in mechanical engineering. Now, before I actually start talking on this topic, I'll just like to share one slide with you all. Everybody, you must have heard this in the media also, that we are into the era of Industry 4.0. What does this Industry 4.0 basically mean? This means that we are heading towards, or we have already headed into, the fourth industrial revolution. Now, whenever there is revolution, the meaning of revolution means there is large scale reforms in the manner in which businesses are operating. There is a large scale reform in which industries are going to operate. There is a large scale reform the way in which the demand is going to be met. There is a large scale reformation waiting in the way the supplies of the products which are going to be to the customers. So before we talk about the fourth industrial revolution, let's just summarize what happened in the previous industrial revolutions. So when we talk about the first industrial revolution, which happened in the 18th century, to be very specific, in the year 1784, it was marked by the introduction of a water and steam powered mechanical manufacturing facilities, or in general, it was marked by the evolution of steam engine. So the moment steam engines evolved, where they were first of all invented, then later they evolved and they were applied in the industry, there was large scale reform in the way the markets, the industries demand, the paradigms, dynamics, everything changed. Okay. And when these kind of changes come, we have already seen that industries tend to grow, economies tend to prosper and do well, and always there are new opportunities to look upon. Then we come to the second industrial revolution, which was way back in the 19th century, maybe around in the year 1870, which followed the introduction of electrically powered mass production based on division of labor. So we saw the evolution of mass production, a very, very different dimension on how to cater to large demands had evolved during this industrial revolution. Again, it had brought a lot of new opportunities, lot of new areas to work upon, lot of new business opportunities as well. And industries changed the way it were handling the situations, and it started handling situation in a much better way than they did in the past. Coming to the third industrial revolution, which was not very far, maybe in the 20th century, in the year 1969, Here we saw the evolvement of, or the coming up of the concept of automation of mechanical parts. Here you would see from here onwards, processes started to get automated with the help of electronics and IT. And today we have hundreds of examples where there is so much of automation going on, and so many mechanical machines have been partially automated or maybe even fully automated. Right now, speaking of today, we are into, as I said, we are into the fourth industrial revolution, and this industrial revolution is basically marked by the evolution of cyber physical systems, right? So how is my presentation going to be now? First of all, before we come to the cyber physical system and discuss much in detail about it, I would like to have an overview about what mechatronic systems is, because I believe there are a lot of second year students also attending this webinar. Third year students might have studied this subject very recently, so they might be knowing something about it. So just an overview for them who are not knowing it. Then we come to what is embedded systems. We will introduce and we will try to understand what do we mean exactly by cyber physical systems, how does it operate, what are its applications and the scope of applications in the industry. Depending upon the applications which we will discuss, we will summarize on what are the salient features or the features of the cyber physical system, what is the future scope, the future objectives, we will put on, we'll throw some light upon, and relevance of the CPA, of the cyber physical system around the world, that what is the demand, how relevant is this concept of cyber physical system around the world. And of course, at the last, the prerequisites, if at all, as an engineer or as an undergraduate student, if you would like to try to approach or maybe do some kind of research project work or some kind of specialization in any of these fields related to cyber physical systems, how do you go about making things? What are the prerequisites? What do you need to have? What do you need to exactly do? Okay. Now we'll start with a mechatronic system. What do we mean by a mechatronic system? Mechatronic, the word mechatronic is coming from two words, mechanical and electronics. Mechanical and electronics. It's not a single branch now. Two aspects, two words, mechanical and electronics. So mechatronics is an interdisciplinary area of engineering that combines mechanical, electrical, and computer science engineering. A typical mechatronic system picks up signals from the environment, processes them to generate output signals, and transforming them, for example, into forces, motions, and action. Okay. So what had been happening manually when you would have given in an input, a mechanical input to a system or to a machine, and then you would have a mechanical output. Here, with the evolution of mechatronics, you can electronically give an input and gain a mechanical output, or vice versa. Understood? So this is how basically a mechatronic system works. Now, what does a mechatronic system exactly consist of? It usually consists of sensors, controllers, actuators, which communicate with the physical system or with the machine on which it is being operated. What does the sensor do? You have sensors for temperature, you have sensors for pressure, you have sensors for measuring velocities and acceleration, and so on. So basically, what does the sensor do? It basically interacts with the physical environment, collects the data, gives the data to the controller, where the controller will process the data. It will convert the data into required signals. You must have, third year students must have learned about DAC and ADC and so many different types of controllers and converters, which we had, which was there as a part of your mechatronics syllabus. So the signals or the data is being processed into some information. That information is passed to the actuator. What does the actuator do? It takes in the electronic information and then converts it into a physical phenomena, such as applying a mechanical load, applying some kind of a velocity, generating some kind of acceleration into the physical system. So this is how basically any mechatronic system works. Next, just let me relate to the examples of various mechatronic systems. You can have, if I talk about a mechatronic system, in today's time, there are hundreds, thousands, and maybe millions of examples which I can relate to, but I would just relate to something which is very familiar to you. So two things which you must have seen in your labs. One is a universal testing machine, or UTM, which you must have worked on during your SOM strength of material practicals. And you must be having a fair bit of idea how do these machines operate basically, and why are they used for. Basically, a universal testing machine is used for testing a strength of a given specimen or a material. So what do you do? How do you test the specimen? Basically, you are fixing the specimen into the UTM. You are applying some kind of mechanical load to it. You are making it fail, and then you are evaluating the forces which are involved, or the magnitude of forces which are involved, to ensure that the material has failed, and based on that, how much is the stress and how much is the strength basically of the material. Let's talk about a very simple experiment of a tensile test being conducted on a UTM. How does it happen? How does this entire machine work? Let us try to understand that. How do you operate? So when you are fixing the specimen into the machine, thereafter, if you are applying mechanical load, do you do it manually? You do not do it manually. There is an electronic input. With the help of electronic controls, you are basically applying mechanical load. So there are actuators which are going to convert these mechanical signals, okay, into actual physical phenomena. That means they will apply mechanical load as signaled by you through an electronic input. After that, as the load increases, the displacement of the specimen will also increase, and the load versus the displacement data is stored in a particular software, again through a communication mean, okay? And at the end, when the specimen has completely failed, there is enough data stored for the computer or the software to generate a load displacement curve through which you can evaluate the mechanical properties of that material which was tested. That's the Young's modulus, or the modulus of rigidity, or the shear modulus of rigidity, whatever you want to, and so many other parameters can be found out. Coming to the vertical machining center, again, this is a facility which is there in one of our labs. Okay, how do you operate it? Okay, this has a computer and an operating system and a software in it. So whenever you want to actuate this machine, it can be actuated through some programs. They can be a numerically controlled algorithms or numerically controlled programs through which you can monitor, you can control all the possible operations which the machine is capable of carrying out. So two very distinctive examples of mechatronic systems, and I hope everybody must have understood that how do the mechatronic system operates. Moving on further, let's talk about embedded systems. Now, before I tell you anything about embedded systems, this falls under whatever you want to call a tree of the mechatronic system. Okay, it is a kind of mechatronic systems or a combination of mechatronic systems. How do you define an embedded system? An embedded system is a combination of computer hardware and software, either fixed in capability or programmable. That means the computer software can be customized, can be programmed, or it can be fixed depending upon for what purpose you are using it. It completely again depends upon that, and it is designed for a specific functions or a set of functions within a larger system. So when we are talking about embedded systems, they have some mechatronic systems which are embedded or which are fixed into the physical system to not cover the entire operation, but a few functions of that, which would help or ensure in the smooth functioning of the original machine. On the right hand side of the screen, you can see an image of a vehicle, a modern day vehicle, a sedan, which you must have often seen on the roads. Okay, and there are some labels which are there attached to that. They are the airbag system, you have the in-vehicle networking, braking system. When I'm talking about braking system, I'm relating to the ABS, the anti-lock braking system. and then you have powertrains. Apart from that, you have a lot of other mechatronic systems which are electronically operated, electronically controlled, and the physical phenomena and the processes are completely electronically controlled through this. Hence, an modern day automobile or vehicle is also coming under the category of an embedded system. Your modern day aircraft, your passenger aircraft comes under the category of an embedded system, right? And they can, again, just as mechatronic systems, in today's era, I can relate to more than 1,000 or 10,000 different types of examples which are related or which can be defined or which come under the category of embedded systems. So in other words, or in a very simple word, any sort of device which includes a programmable computer, but itself is not intended to be a general purpose computer, is called as an embedded system. So you have a computing system, based on an algorithm which is going to run, which is going to control the signal, which is going to process the signals. But basically it is not exactly a computer. It is just used for performing specific type of functions. Let us understand better with this diagram now. You can see this modern day automotive here. And you can see so many automated systems which are either working independently or which are either in sync with each other. The most important part of the important embedded system which I would like to draw your notice to is the ECU. Many of you all must have studied in IC engines also, the engine control unit. Okay, this evolution has made the carburetor completely redundant, and you have a very, very sophisticated fuel injection system which senses the demand of the engine and accordingly would inject petrol or diesel or whichever fuel which is used to drive the automobile into the engine. You have an injection control for that. You have an injection monitor for that. You also have an oil level sensing. That means the lubrication is also being taken care of in a very, very automated manner without any human intervention. You have sensors which will sense the dryness in the assembly and then automatically actuate the lubricators to lubricate the system enough so that there is not much wear and tear and there is not much of excessive heat generation due to which the engine might fail. There is a throttle valve control also which controls or regulates the flow of air automatically. Your headlight position control positions your headlight wherever it is required. Again, it's a part of an embedded system. A group of sensors, actuators, and controllers in sync work together for this function to take place. Seat control positions, your automatic door locking systems, automated cruise control, rain sensing wipers. I mean, so many mechatronic systems inculcated into a physical machine to operate either in sync or independently. So this is the case of an embedded system. Coming to rain sensing wipers, I think Professor Khatkate, a lot of students have done some very good work as far as rain sensing wipers are concerned, and students interested must at least have a look at it, at the literature, and plan some more research based on that. Other examples of embedded systems which I would like to bring to your notice: washing machine, your automatic washing machine. How does that operate? Okay, how does that operate? Nothing has to be done by you. All you need to do is you need to load your clothes inside the washing machine and just press the button. Automatically, just from loading the water to discharging the water, all the operations, right from rinsing, drying, everything will be taken care of in a very, very systematic and a programmed manner by the washing machine. So this is again an embedded system where you have mechatronic systems working in sync to make sure that your clothes are clean at the end of the operations. Next, your smartphones, your Android phones which you have been using. This is a classical example of an embedded system. How many different tasks you can perform automatically, right? Without any human intervention. Microwave oven, It does the heating the way you desire, the way you want, at the temperature you want, for the duration you want, without any human intervention. You have GPS systems, the global positioning systems, which will automatically guide you. Intelligent credit cards. Nowadays, you have credit cards with an electronic chip, right? And you just put it in front of the scanner and the entire transaction will be done without, again, any human intervention. Guided missiles, okay? Nobody is there in the cockpit of the missile, okay? They are driven by a control station, which is stationed on the ground somewhere, and it does its job. Okay, so this was embedded systems. Now, let us come to the concept of cyber physical systems, and let us understand what does cyber physical system means. Now, we have seen embedded systems work so efficiently without the human intervention. But if I have an embedded system which I have to control, which is not in front of me, which is not near to me, maybe that in the embedded system is, say, somewhere 5 kilometers away from where I am, or maybe 100 kilometers away from where I am. Or if an embedded system has to work on the basis of another embedded system, which is not in the same room, which is maybe very far away from the other embedded system, in that case, how does the operation take place in sync? And for that, we have something which we call as cyber physical systems. So let us read, what do we mean by cyber physical systems? Cyber physical systems is the synergistic integration of network, computation, and physical processes. Their application in mechanical engineering has been long researched and studied since the idea of automation has come into picture. So whatever you are going to see in as far as cyber physical systems happening in mechanical engineering or in other fields of engineering, so on, this has not started just now or a year ago or 2 years back. The research has been carried out since many years, ever since automation has come into picture, and you are seeing the results in the present day. Okay, so basically, when an embedded system, okay, if it is interacting with a physical environment or some other embedded system, okay, which is controlling it, which is running it, or on the data or on the result on the basis of which it has to be operated, okay, how is that interaction taking place? That interaction, it has to take place through a wireless sensor network, through a wireless sensor network. So if that interaction is being facilitated through a wireless sensor network, that system is actually called as a cyber physical system. So that means if I have a machine or if I have an embedded system which is there in the college, and I am operating the machine and I am being able to control the machine with the help of some gadget or some other embedded system, say my mobile phone or my smartphone, here sitting at my place where I am, then this system is called as a cyber physical system. Okay, so this is how a cyber physical system is. It depends upon a wireless sensing network. Now, the three major components of a cyber physical system, where the entire operation of a cyber physical system completely depends upon, the three C's, is computation, control, and communication. Computation, control, and communication. So the information is communicated, is computed, and controlled, as a result of which you would see the desired output or outcomes of a particular operation on the machine. This visual will help us better to understand how the cyber physical system actually works. So you have a physical system down here. Maybe you have a machine, right, which has to be operated, which has to be instructed from an external source somewhere outside, okay, through the sensors through the sensors here, the data is being provided to the cyber, or what you would say, the cloud, where the data is stored. And at the cloud, here you have what we call as, you will have communication servers, you might have application servers, you might have HMI. HMI is human machining interface. Then you might have data servers, database servers, processing servers, and you might have workstations also. Okay, so what does these things have to do with? See, whenever you are interacting with another system to perform a very complex operation, you will need a lot of data, a lot of information needs to be exchanged. And that information will not, all the information may not be used together for a single process. Some part of information will be used for some process, some part of information might be used for another process. So there has to be some means where we can store the information, and this information is stored here in the cloud. So you have what we call as a database server and the data server. This is where the information which is being exchanged is stored here. Then you have a processing server. Based on what operation has to be performed or what outcome has to be achieved, the data is processed accordingly. And how is the data processed? This data is processed with the help of some deep learning algorithms, okay, some programming, some kind of coding, okay. Based on that, the data is being processed, okay. After the data is being processed, it is passed to the controller, and then the controller gives back the information to the physical system, and the physical system is going to actuate the entire output. So this is how a cyber physical system basically works, okay. A network of wireless sensing networks. How is that information exchange take place? How does this wireless interaction take place? This can be facilitated through something what we call as IoT, Internet of Things. A lot of times it has been discussed in the previous webinars. In fact, yesterday, as Jagtap sir also discussed about IoT and how does it work. So basically, IoT is facilitated in cyber physical systems for interaction between the embedded system and the physical environment. Next. Now, this is what cyber physical system is all about. Now, let us see where are the applications of the cyber physical systems. Let us start with the automotives or the modern day automation. Cyber physical system will play a very, very important role as far as vehicle automation and vehicle safety is concerned. Now, we have already come up with electric cars, and a very, very wonderful presentation had been given to you by Jugal sir pertaining to that. But when we are now, the next big thing which is yet to happen is automated vehicles, driverless vehicles to come. So we need so for that kind of automation to take place, I think cyber physical systems have a very big role to play, because if you want to control an automobile, not from within the automobile, but somewhere outside the automobile, you will need a cyber physical system. You will need means where the sensors, the embedded systems can communicate, interact effectively with each other to see that the vehicle operates in the desired manner. And of course, another big challenge is vehicle safety. We are again heading towards urbanization, and it is being predicted by 2030, nearly 60% of the world population will be living or will be residing in urban areas. So that's a very big chunk of population. And when we have such a big chunk of population in the urban areas, you will have to face problems of traffic, you will have to face problems of congestion. And as these things increase, the chances of accidents and fatalities also increase. So we need to work on that. Vehicle safety and vehicle regulation management are very, very key aspects on which a lot of research has been done these days through GPS systems or through other means, maybe through IoT or some through other media. There is how effective communication can be done to the traffic management system and with respect to the other vehicles, so that there is enough information into the embedded system or into the vehicle for them to prevent themselves from any kind of an accident or any kind of a fatality. The third point which we are saying, enhancement of V2V communications. Sir talked about V2G communications yesterday. That means vehicle to grid. I'm talking about V2V communication, that is vehicle to vehicle communication. That means now there is an interaction between two embedded systems with the help of a wireless sensor network, which is facilitated by IoT. Understood? So what happens is, if the proximity of the other vehicle is known to them, how far or how near or how fast is it approaching the other vehicle, the vehicle, using that information, the vehicle, if it's an or completely automated vehicle, it can reroute itself. It can make changes into the velocity and acceleration and the motion parameters on which it is moving upon, and accordingly it would program itself so that they do not collide or they do not meet any kind of fatalities. Okay, so a very, very simple example. Of course, there are a lot of complexities and a lot of factors when we are talking about V2V communications are involved, but this is just a very simple example which I have presented to you. Then it can act as a very important component of a smart city. Now, what are smart cities and how does cyber physical systems play an important role as far as development of smart cities are concerned? I'll just see it in the later slides. It can play a very important role as far as emission control is concerned. Of course, the world is facing challenges such as global warming and conserving the ecosystem, and vehicle emission has a huge component to contribute to this menace. So if there are means to monitor, to gauge the emissions for every single vehicle, it would be very easy for the industry, for researchers, for even for the governments to come up with proper policies for the researchers, for the industries to make certain changes in their design and the functioning of the automotive vehicles. Okay, this data can be very much useful for that for them also. So cyber physical system does play a very important role as far as pollution control is concerned. Let's come to an aerospace industry. Okay, this is a graphic which I have taken from a case study of Boeing. You know what Boeing is. It's a company which is manufacturing passenger and military aircrafts, and it's a very old company, and it has so far manufactured a lot of aircrafts, a lot of military utilities also, and it's an aerospace giant basically. Now, according to Boeing, they are coming up with technologies, or they are developing certain technologies apart from that broadband satellite and global communication system, which is used for the cockpit of the airplane to interact with the control tower, which is at the airport, just for the air traffic management purpose. Apart from that, there are many means through which a lot of other data can be exchanged and can be communicated to. For example, if the AC is the air conditioning system of the passenger or inside the airplane, it can be controlled somewhere from the ground. The passenger crew can interact with somebody from the ground independently without interfering with this this radar here. A very typical example, now it is very easy to trace where the flight is. If you are going somewhere, if you are going to the airport, if you are supposed to receive somebody at the airport, right? There is a method from the internet or from the airline website. You can easily get what is the expected time of arrival. And this database is not necessarily coming from the control stations. No, okay? You have cyber physical systems in place which interact directly with the airline operations and the airline management. And this information is also shared with the consumers or the customers and the technical crews which are at the airport. For example, let me take a very simple example. You have seen a lot of cases where there are technical snags which are developed on in the airplane, in mid-air technical snags, due to which they have to divert the flights and make an emergency landing and so on. For example, if an aeroplane is traveling from Delhi to Bombay, it develops a technical snag somewhere in between, whereby it has to land at Ahmedabad, and they get the clearance from the control station. They get the clearance for landing. So what does happen here is, through the communication system here, the airline management is informed about the landing, at which runway it is going to land, and this is passed to the consumers. This is also shared with the airline technical staff which is there at the Ahmedabad airport. So they would be ready and they would be on their toes, and they would bring everything which is required for the servicing to be done at the airport runway, so that less time is wasted in attending that snag and rectify things as soon as possible, because it is making an emergency landing. It's an unprecedented landing which it is making. It could disturb a lot schedule of lot of other flights also, to cut down on those delays, to cut down on those losses, and waste less amount of time, attend the problem in minimum possible amount of time, and get things going immediately. Cyber physical systems can be of very, very great help here. Okay, coming to smart cities. What does a smart city basically look like? When we are talking about smart cities, I interact with a lot of students also on smart cities, and basically what feedback I get as far as their understanding for smart cities is that you have very well developed roads and modern day parking amenities and huge tall buildings and lovely theaters and lovely shopping malls and so on. But that itself is not a smart city. A smart city is a combination of embedded systems which are capable of interacting effectively with respect to each other and automate many manual procedures. So here, if you see this view, which is there right in front of your screens, what should be there as a component of your smart city? Right at the right hand side of your screen, you have smart street lights. What does that happen? It has a sensor which would detect any presence of a human being or an animal or an obstacle or a vehicle which is passing by in the night time. And whenever it would find that there is a passing by going on, or there is some obstacle, or there is some activity which is going on, it would automatically light. And whenever there is no present, it would automatically go off. Or it can have another way. If the visibility falls below a certain level, it will automatically actuate. And if the visibility is good enough, it will automatically go off. So no need to manually switching in and switching off. No need to set any timers for switching in and switching off. Then even in waste management system, the entire waste management system through cyber physical systems can be automated. Okay, you place a sensor in a trash can, which is communicating through cyber physical system with the waste management center. As soon as the waste level in the can increases, okay, a signal will be given to the waste management center, where it would send a vehicle to vacate or maybe empty the trash can, and then it will go and dispose it off. You have emergency departments like hospitals, your firefighting systems, which can be completely automated through a cyber physical systems. You have a firefighting systems in your society. If it is capable of interacting directly with the fire department through a cyber physical system, cyber physical system, okay, nobody needs to inform if there is any kind of a mishap or a fire which is breaking out somewhere. The fire department will be immediately informed. The location will be provided by that system, and it will reach in quick time to attend that emergency. Okay, you have solar panels or renewable energy sources which could interact with the conventional grids in order to optimize the supply, in order to cater to the demand thoroughly. Then again, you would have interaction between two embedded systems. you will have you will have a mechatronic system at the bus stop, and you will have a bus which is having some kind of a mechatronic system which will communicate. And from the bus stop itself, okay, you will get an information that when is the next bus due, how far is the next bus, and in what time you can expect the bus, right? Then, as I talked about intelligent automotives, the role of automotives in the smart city. These automotives can interact with the traffic management system and automatically reroute themselves, right? You already have a feature in your Google Maps which gives you information about the traffic density. So which is the best route according to the current traffic scenario, and then you manually select the safest route or the fastest route accordingly. Apart from these features which I have pointed out for smart city, there are other aspects also, such as the flood management system, the urban flooding. You have a drainage system where you can put sensors which can interact with the administration and the local department, which can inform the department, which can intimate the department or pass on information about the department about the conditions of drain during the monsoons when there is very heavy rains. Okay, and based on that information, the pumps can be actuated automatically so that there is no flooding involved. Okay, health department, as I said, hospitals, just as the firefighting systems can have communication, you have the healthcare systems like hospitals also, which have an automatic communication with the residential complexes and the other infrastructure facilities, such as maybe theaters or any other public places. Wherever there is a emergency, a medical emergency, the nearest hospital can cater to that medical emergency. Transportation I have spoken about, traffic I have spoken about, waste management I have spoken about, environment pollution, again I have spoken about, water and electric supply. Okay, regulate the water electric supply. You might have installed sensors in your society water tanks, which would communicate with the main water distribution center, giving information that how much water is there and how much water more is required to fill the tank or to fill the tank completely. Okay, so this can regulate you. By this means you can regulate the flow of water and optimum usage of water can take place. Same applies to the electric supply, which you can communicate with the grid systems directly. Then a very important aspect is e-governance. Okay, any permissions, any kind of communication with the government administration or maybe with the municipal corporation, it can be done online. You need not to post letters, fill forms and submit it manually. There is a portal where you can apply for anything. If you are applying for certain permissions, you do it online. To lodge certain complaints, you can do it online, and through a systematic way, those complaints, those procedures can be attended to. It can be applied to crime and public safety as well. You can, if there is a criminal activity anywhere going on, okay, you have your CCTVs arranged to it. You can have some intelligent sensors or programmable sensors which could sense any kind of an inactivity and report it straight away to the police station, to the nearest police station, or to the nearest police officer. Also communicated to the nearest police officer, where he can reach the crime spot immediately. Talking about healthcare systems now, in the era where we are dealing with such a dangerous pandemic called as COVID-19, which is such a contagious disease. Okay, the involvement or the relevance of cyber physical systems becomes very much needed. You imagine a situation here in today where you have some COVID-19 patients. They have to be attended by the doctors and the healthcare workers personally. So they are in contact, they are in physical contact with each other, and they are in danger of contracting the virus also. But if you have a robust cyber physical system in place where you have robots which are being controlled by doctors and experts who are not necessarily there in the hospital, but even at their homes, but they are controlling them completely. And whatever has to be done on the, whatever treatment has to be carried out on the patient, that is being carried out through effective exchange of information in real time. So that can be a very, very feasible solution. A lot of doctors, a lot of our healthcare workers are getting infected due to that. If we would have had this kind of a system in place, I think those things could have been avoided. So what has happened so far in cyber physical system is it has given way to image guided surgeries and therapies. It can control the fluid parameters for medicinal purposes and biological analysis. Intelligent operating theaters and hospitals. You must have heard about the robotic surgery, which is performed. Maybe some doctor from the US can completely control an operation theater here in India or maybe here in Bombay and perform the operation very effectively. Okay, bone marrow transplants, bone transfusion, blood transfusion, and brain-machine interfaces. All these things are possible. Smart grid systems. I think pertaining to that, the other day, Ram sir threw a lot of light on it. That over that the components of a transmission along the electrical transmission line, right from the grid to the main circuit. How can these components or how can these entities interact? Apart from IoT, Ram sir also did mention about SCADA, okay? So which can look into, and these interactions would help in demand management. It could help in distributed generation. It is capable of integrating the conventional power plants with the renewable energy systems. Okay, so it is something which optimizes the conventional electric supply in some way, and of course the evolution of smart meters. Then very, very important as far as mechanical engineering especially is concerned, or in fact any branch of engineering concerned, is large scale manufacturing. How can this be a boon to a manufacturing system? Okay, you can have a self-monitoring, you can have self-monitoring of the production operations, whereas you can exchange information between machines through cyber physical systems, which is only possible because of cyber physical systems. You can exchange information between the production plant and the supply chain. So this means there is effective communication right from the production or from the manufacturing plant to the supply chain. Okay, so there will be no bottlenecks. Okay, if you come up with a very, very robust cyber physical system, you cannot have bottlenecks anywhere along the supply chain. Okay, you will have better inventory control, which means it improves the traceability and the security of goods. You are into an era where people buy goods online. They order things online, and then there is a logistic delivery system in place. So you, right from the manufacturing till it is delivered to the end consumer, you can trace the good, so to ensure that it is not being misplaced anywhere. Okay, and it helps in predicting the equipment wear and faults in the product. Okay, so again, if there is any kind of fault as far as manufacturing is concerned, as far as machining is concerned, they can be looked into and they can be attended without entering into the shop floor if you have a robust cyber physical system in place. Then now let me just make you understand that how all these things which I have just mentioned in the previous slide are possible. The manufacturing system works under a 5-level architecture. The first level is connection, where the data is generated by machines and tools and the product. Okay. Then conversion. The data which has been generated is using the algorithm. It converts that data into useful information further. Then the third level is cyber, which processes this information further, and it acts as a cloud to perform complex cyber operations. When I am talking about complex cyber operations, I would like you to remind back to the operation which I explained, where you had a cyber world where there are so many data servers and data processing systems and so on. So it's a complex cyber operation there involved, which would segregate the data accordingly, and it runs algorithms to identify data patterns, what the future trend is and how it is needed, what kind of input now is desired. The fourth part is cognition, which converts machine signal to information in order to compare information with other outcomes. So again, it acts like a comparator here. And configuration. A machine can detect failures and sends any type of relevant information to ensure safe operation. Now, we have seen so many different cases of cyber physical systems that this is not the end of it. You have applications in various fields, even in the agricultural sector. You have a cyber physical system has a very, very big role to play, understood. But depending upon what examples which we have covered so far, okay, what are the features basically of a cyber physical system, or if we are developing a cyber physical system, what kind of features one must desire to have? First is reactive computation. Embedded systems interact with the cyber systems in a very organized manner, okay, and sequence of inputs and outputs are systematically observed. Second feature is concurrency, where with the help of cyber physical system, when you saw such a complex cyber system and you can see so many different algorithms which are into implementation, you can have multiple processes running concurrently. You can have effective process exchange information to achieve the desired output, and you can operate synchronous as you can operate the embedded systems in a synchronous or an asynchronous mode. Feedback control to the physical world, that's another feature. Real-time computation, which is very important, especially real-time computation when you're working on traffic management, vehicular traffic management, when you're talking about working upon air traffic management. Real-time computation is the key, and it's very critical to the safety of the system. And of course, safety for critical applications. Now, this is something, just let me take an example of an operation of a nuclear power plant, where a nuclear reactor has to be operated. Definitely, it is not being operated by somebody who is right into the nuclear plant, but he has to be there somewhere outside the plant. So cyber physical systems ensure the safety aspect also to such critical applications. Now, what is the future? What scope does cyber physical, where are the areas where you can explore cyber physical systems? You can work in this area to attain a near zero traffic fatalities. That means in the area of vehicular traffic management. Okay, you can work on the grid systems to ensure blackout-free electricity generation and distribution. Perpetual life assistance for older and disabled people. As I told you, firefighting systems, hospitals, they are examples. You can work on more of these aspects. Okay, extreme yield agriculture, as I've just mentioned during the previous slide, that even in agriculture, cyber physical systems have a huge role to play. You can have temperature sensors in the field, which would test the temperature, or maybe some other sensors which are going to measure the humidity and the moisture in the soil. And based on that, irrigation can be actuated or can be controlled. Then you have energy aware buildings, unmanned aircraft and automotives, which we haven't seen, but there is a lot of buzz and talk and research which is going on. So these are the areas where researchers are still yet to work, and work is going on. And critical infrastructure for preventive maintenance. Okay, you have an HVAC system in a building, a centralized air conditioning system, or maybe a centralized heating system, which has to be maintained, controlled. So you do not have to attend that plant in case of any kind of maintenance or preventive maintenance is concerned. You might have a laptop at your home, or you might have a smartphone at your home, and you can monitor the entire system and carry out maintenance operations from there if you have cyber physical systems in place. Now, what is the relevance of these cyber physical systems around the world? Just from whatever information I have got on the internet and other sources, this is what I have got, that Japan is capitalizing on its strength in this field to make advances in technology. Japan is one of the leading countries as far as mechatronic innovation is concerned. Then the United States still remains a global leader in cyber technologies and well positioned to gain and maintain a competitive edge as far as cyber physical systems are concerned. And the great potential of cyber physical system is motivating countries like India and China to forge ahead into this field. Okay. And for your information, the Department of Science and Technology, which comes under the central government of India, has allocated an amount of rupees 3,600 crores way back in 2015 only for research, startup and development, only pertaining to the field of cyber physical systems. So you can imagine how much the governments have been investing in this sphere, and you must be able to make out what is the relevance and what is the importance. I think, in fact, by no means, with all these facts in front of us, it is very convenient for us to make an inference that this is the next big thing which is going to happen or which is in the waiting. Now, as students, if you all are interested to do some kind of research, to do some kind of project work, to gain expertise in this field at the undergraduate level, what exactly you need to do? You need to have a very good and sound knowledge as far as mathematics is concerned, okay? Because again, you have to interact with the physical systems. The physical systems, you have, as we say, you have governing differential equations for each phenomena, whether it is heat transfer, whether it is fluid flow, whether it is slope and deflection of a beam. So you have governing differential equations, and how to solve those governing differential equations, and a lot of mathematical numerical methods are involved that are valid from case to case and depends upon the boundary conditions which you are dealing with. Another very important aspect is start getting used to coding and programming. Now, coding and programming is no longer only something which computer and IT people, IT engineers are supposed to do or supposed to know. Every person from every engineering background needs to have programming and coding skills. This is a prerequisite now, okay? And it is supplement to what your original curriculum is, okay? That does not mean this is a substitute, but it is a supplement, okay? Then very good knowledge about mechatronics and control systems. You need to know this subject very, very well, and make sure you work on projects, you do some kind of publications, you know something about research, what is happening in this field. You need to know a little bit about IoT and machine learning, okay? What exactly has to be known, what exactly has to be contracted, that again depends upon what your field of interest is, and exactly you have to refer to a literature. A lot of literature is available online for that. And of course, your domain specific core subjects would always remain relevant. It is never going to get out of date, okay? So if that is not clear, you can't do anything about cyber physical system, because you have a physical system and a cyber system. So if you don't know anything about the physical system, if your knowledge is not that sound as far as the physical systems are concerned, I think you will not be able to penetrate through, okay? I hope this has been a meaningful presentation, and I'll be happy to attend your...
One question from Ijaz.
Yes, sir.
What is the difference between cyber physical system and embedded system?
See, that is what exactly I had said. When we are talking about an embedded system, it is just one part of a cyber physical system. Okay. For example, let's talk about an embedded system of a smartphone. If you want to carry out any operation on a smartphone, you have to be at it. If you want to carry out any operation on an automatic washing machine, you have to be there to operate it, to switch it on or to switch it off. Okay. But when you have a cyber physical system, you need not to be at the machine. You might be thousands of kilometers away. With the help of some other embedded system, you can operate and you can control the other machines. So cyber physical systems is a combination of, it might be a combination of multiple embedded systems as well.
Okay. Are
Yes.
control systems a part of embedded system? And moving on to the same question a little bit further, asked by Mohammed Saklin, what are the vulnerability of cyber physical systems?
Yes, speaking at this point of time, cyber physical systems do have their own challenges also, which we have to look into. When we have a cyber physical system, for example, let me take a very simple example. It has not yet happened, but if it may happen, if I'm talking about a commercial aircraft or an unmanned aircraft, which I had just mentioned in my presentation, somebody can hack the entire wireless networks. As you know, that wireless network hacking is being taking place. You have seen that in the banking system taking place. So it is quite possible of happening there as well. So there are vulnerabilities, but at the same time, before putting it into operation, these vulnerabilities are also being worked upon, that to make it very, very foolproof and any free from any kind of notorious crimes.
Okay. And are from Rehan Ansari, are control systems a part of a embedded system?
Yes, of course. Of course. Of course. Yes, yes, yes. They are a part of, I told you right at the beginning that when we are talking about embedded systems, when we are talking about cyber physical systems, all fall under the tree of a mechatronic system. So mechatronics is the basic to everything.
Okay, thank you, sir, for the wonderful answer.